It started on a Wednesday, round about 4 in the afternoon. The kind of day that drifts by quiet but swollen, like something heavy hanging in the air, waiting to burst. I was sitting at my kitchen table, wearing the same old cardigan I've had since Joylene graduated nursing school, a little thinned out round the elbows, but soft. Tea had cooled in my hand. The window was cracked just enough to let fall breeze tickle the curtain, soft light, golden, catching on the wood grain. And then I heard the front screen door slam, hard, too hard for a visit. I looked up. Her knock didn't even come. She just pushed inside like her lungs could not hold another breath, like if she ain't walked in right that second, her body might collapse in the street. Joylene. She had on a big hoodie, the maroon one from that free clinic she used to work at. Baggy jeans, no jewelry, hair tied up in a messy puff under a bonnet like she ran out the house in a rush. She wasn't carrying her usual purse, just a crumpled grocery bag with God knows what inside. Her little girl, Ania, was clinging to her side, wide-eyed, quiet. That baby always quiet when something's wrong. "Mama," Joylene said, and her voice cracked like ice. I put the tea down. She made it 2 steps into the kitchen before her knees buckled under her. It wasn't a faint, no drama, no flair. More like she just couldn't keep the pretend weight of normal no more. Her shoulders started shaking, and she tried to laugh, that weak, tired laugh some women do when they ain't ready to cry in front of nobody. I don't know why I came," she started, and then her head dropped into her hands, elbows hitting the table so hard the salt shaker jumped. I rushed to her side, not too fast. "You gotta be careful with Joylene. She's always been pride-wrapped. Even as a girl, she didn't like no one seeing her cry. Thought it meant she was failing." I set my hand gentle on her back. "You came home," I said. "That's all I care about." Ania was still standing in the doorway, those little beads on her braids clacking while she shifted from one foot to the other. "Come on in here with Nana, baby," I said, trying to keep my voice light. She obeyed without a word, sat on the far edge of the bench, holding that doll with the one-legged sock. I went to the stove to heat some fresh tea. When someone break in your kitchen like that, the way Joylene just did, you don't ask questions right away. You heat water, you listen. Sometimes silence tells on a person before words ever do. She kept her head low for a while. I caught her sneaking glances to the window like she was making sure ain't nobody follow. Her hands were clasped tight in her lap, too tight. I caught a glimpse of something odd as she adjusted her sleeve, but I didn't want to stare. Purple, maybe old, maybe new. I wasn't sure yet. The kettle screeched like it had a warning to give, high and hot. When I brought the mugs over, she sat up straighter and wiped her face with her sleeve like nothing had happened. "You good, baby?" I said, handing her the tea. "Yeah, I'm good, just tired. Couldn't sit in that place another second." She took a sip, winced a little at the heat like it caught her by surprise. I nodded, held mine close, even though it was too hot to drink. She wouldn't look at me long, just scanned the room, eyes darting round the kitchen like she was taking inventory. Dust on the baker's rack, the chipped sugar jar, the little note I kept from Caleb tacked crooked on the fridge. All them ordinary things that said safe. "You sleep yet today?" I asked. "Didn't get a chance." She rubbed her temple and sighed. "He gon' be mad I left. Probably already is. I took Ania right out of school early." "Why?" I said soft. She paused. Then her body gave one of them trembles, like a dog left out in cold too long. That's when the silence got thick. She opened her mouth to answer, but it closed again. "You hungry?" She shook her head slowly. Then her lip did this trembly thing, and right then I knew something inside her was begging to break. I started to get up to set a plate anyway, but Ania dropped her doll, and that's when it happened. Joylene flinched, not a little flinch, a full-body jerk like someone had raised a hand to her without any warning, just that rubber band snap in the shoulders, fast and sharp. And that's when I saw it. Her sleeve had pushed just enough for the light to catch a line of blue and yellow under her arm. Long, dark, distinct, fresh. There weren't no mistaking it. That was a bruise. Ain't one from bumping into no counter. I didn't say nothing. Not right then. I just looked at her. She noticed me noticing. and her whole face fell apart. "It ain't like that," she said too fast. "It's complicated." I didn't let her finish. I reached across and held her hand. Felt bones too close to skin, like she hadn't really been eaten right. Her eye twitched, that quiet tick she gets when she trying not to go off. "You gon' tell me what's complicated, or you want me to guess?" I said. She started crying. This time she didn't stop it. At first it was just tears, no noise. Her shoulders moved like the sobs were silent, scared. Then it hit her like a wave. She let herself go, cried into both hands, rockin' in place. I rubbed her back slow, like I used to when she'd get bad headaches in high school and collapse after working her shift and watching her little brothers after. "I tried to make it work," she whispered between breaths. "I kept thinking things would get better. But they kept not. And now I don't know what to do." Ania was still clutching that doll tight, eyes wide. I leaned over, kissed her forehead. She leaned into my side and sighed. Joylene wiped at her face, tried to laugh again, confused by her own breakdown. "I don't even know why I'm crying. I've been holding all this inside for months." "You crying 'cause you safe now," I said. "Crying 'cause ain't nobody gon' hurt you here." He gets angry, but he don't mean to. Every black mother in the world has heard that line. "What do you mean he don't mean to?" I asked. He works hard, and his temper. Sometimes he say it's my fault I get him so worked up. I don't talk right, or I don't listen. "You believe that?" She looked away. "I don't know what I believe, but I got nowhere to go. And Caleb, he's so busy chasing jobs in Houston, he ain't checked on me in 6 months. Marcus can't even pick up a phone unless it's about money." "And me?" I said. "You got enough on your plate, Mama," she whispered. That hurt. I leaned back slow and looked at her long. "I never said that. And even if I did, ain't nowhere in this life where your pain don't matter to me." Silence. Then she took a breath so shaky it sounded like glass was inside her. "Last night he pushed me into the closet door. Not real hard, but just enough." "You fall?" "No, but I hit my shin. Got this bad knot on it. He ain't even say sorry, just walked past like I was furniture." Her voice turned bitter. "And then this morning, he told Ania to stop making noise before I slapped her upside the head. I told him don't talk to her like that. He looked at me the way he did when he grabbed me the first time." She stared at the table, the grain of wood, the cup ring stains and little history spots of 1,000 meals fed with love. I didn't even tell her to pack. I just snatched my keys and got in the car. She thought we was going for cupcakes or something. By the time I realized I ain't packed no diapers, no charger, no change of clothes, I was already halfway here. "He hurt Ania?" I asked. "Not yet," she whispered. "But I don't want to wait for yet to happen." That was the moment. That's when my heart cracked open, not just for her, but for every woman who ever sat at that same table, mothers, daughters, neighbors, wearing quiet pain like perfume, smiling so people wouldn't ask too many questions. I reached under the seat and pulled the quilt I kept there, laid it across her lap like she was a child again. "You're not going back," I said calmly. "But Mama—" "You not going back." Her mouth opened again, but couldn't find more reasons to defend him. Her hands moved instinctively to roll her sleeve down again, and I stopped her. "Let me see it." She hesitated, then lifted the hoodie up her arm slow. More bruises, inside of her bicep, her wrist, a scratch near the elbow. That girl had been ironing, cooking, laying babies down, going to work with them on her, and nobody seen. "I thought you was just tired," I whispered. "Last Christmas you looked so worn down, but I thought you was just getting through like the rest of us. I didn't see it." "You saw it," she said. "You just ain't want to believe it." I looked at her. She was right. I was scared, I admitted. "Me too." The sound of little footsteps caught our ears. Ania had wandered off and come back with a drawing. She held it up with shy pride. It was a picture of 3 women at a table. One was crying, one was holding her. The little one had a doll. "Mama sad," she said, "but Nana make tea, and tea makes Nana magic." Joylene stared at it like it was scripture written in crayon. She wiped her face. "Can we stay, just for the night?" "You stay as long as you need." I watched as she pulled Ania into her lap, squeezed her tight. Tears started falling again, but different, softer, with less fight in 'em. Outside, the sun was low now, streetlights ticked on, crickets had begun their chorus. The kind of night where you sit real still and listen for answers your mouth too tired to ask. I picked up the cups, put fresh water on the stove. Inside my chest was an old, familiar fire, the one I kept wrapped in warnings and silence, hoping my daughters would live softer lives. But silence wasn't an option no more. I had a phone call to make, and a man to reckon with. That night I didn't sleep. I washed the same teacup 3 times. Couldn't sit still. The house was quieter than usual, but not peaceful. That kind of stillness where every clock tick feels like it's accusing you of delaying something you know needs doing. Joylene was in her childhood room, sleeping with Anaya curled up beside her. I could hear Light snoring behind the door. Even that made my heart ache. What kind of woman got to sleep with one eye open unless she finally back at her mama's? I stayed at the kitchen table they left their shadows at. That tiny drawing Ania made was still there, one corner curled up from the teacup steam. Mama sad, Nana magic. Funny thing is, I ain't felt magic in a long time. I stared hard at the sugar jar. It had been in that same spot for years, but tonight it looked out of place. Like I was seeing my whole kitchen a different way. The same way, maybe, Joylene been seeing her life this whole time. Familiar, comforting, but wrong in ways you dare not name out loud for fear they become more true. I remember the first time I should have known something was wrong. It was a Sunday, late spring, half a year back. Joylene had come over with a pound cake that looked like it had been sliced uneven, like she dropped it, then tried to fix it back clean before bringing it. She was wearing that blue sundress she used to love, but it hung too loose. She always said, "Girl, I keep losing weight. Stress got my appetite funny." She brushed it off real quick when I mentioned it, said she needed to shed the COVID fluff. But her laugh didn't stretch past her lips. I asked how work was. She said busy. I asked if she'd been out with her man. She changed the subject. I should have asked harder. Then there was that time in December. I dropped by unannounced to bring her a scarf I crocheted around Thanksgiving. When she opened the door, she leaned on the frame like she was blocking me from seeing inside. Hair wasn't done. Baby toys scattered like wind had blown through. And her eye, it was puffy. Not bruised, not exactly, but red, like she'd been crying or touched her face too rough too many times. She said she had allergies. I didn't challenge her, I just handed her the scarf and told her to hold her head up. Then I walked back to my car and sat there with my hand on the steering wheel, heart thumping. And I drove away. That one regret ain't left me since. 'Cause now I knew what I was looking at all those times wasn't just tired mother blues. It was survivor eyes. Joylene always been the strong one. Even as a girl, she carried herself with a don't mess with me look in her walk. Smart, too. Graduated top 5th in her class. Took care of her brothers like a second mama when I had to put in night shifts to keep the lights on. So when she got grown and said she was moving in with Darnell, that's his name. Even though I still spit it slow like it tastes bitter, I didn't want to pry. She said he was respectful, said he had dreams, told me not to worry. And I didn't, until now. I stood up from the table that night and finally opened the hallway closet. On the top shelf, covered in church shawls and old Sunday hats, was the black box. Ain't nothing fancy, just an old metal case Caleb gave me when he worked security. Inside was where I kept all things too dangerous to leave out in the open. Papers, pictures, a folded email. I remembered when that email came through. It was a full year ago. Joylene sent it to herself from her job computer but forgot to log out when she visited me later that night. I saw it. Didn't snoop. Just noticed the headline in the inbox, "How to Legally Separate When Children Involved." The sender was a women's resource nonprofit. She never spoke on it. I never asked. But I printed it. Something told me even then. The next morning, I made biscuits from scratch. Poured Joylene a tall glass of sweet tea with lemon, just how she liked it when she was a girl. That baby slept in through all the racket. Bless her heart. Joylene dragged herself to the table looking like someone who'd been crying in her sleep. Her eyes were puffy and dry, the kind that already ran out of tears. She sat down slow, back still hunched like she afraid to be comfortable. I laid her plate down. She looked at it like it was a gift from a stranger. "You remember when you used to sneak 4 biscuits in your backpack to school?" I said with a chuckle. She cracked a smile, one of them tired ones that don't reach the soul. "I was a greedy kid." "No, you was just hungry. Ain't the same thing." She didn't argue. I took the seat across from her, left the knife on the table standing up in the butter dish. We sat in silence a minute before she finally whispered, "He ain't always been like this." Now I knew we were starting the real conversation. He used to treat me like royalty. That was before the world got to him. She looked up. "Mama?" "Baby girl." I cut her soft before she got defensive. We sat quiet again for a stretch. I passed her the honey. She didn't take it. "Tell me something. Why he talk to you like you a problem?" Her voice was small. "Because he says I am." "Do you believe that?" She hesitated. That alone was an answer. I leaned back. "Mama, it ain't that easy. If I leave, we lose the insurance. Ania's got asthma, and they cover all her meds." "You think the Lord gonna abandon y'all if you walk out to save yourself?" I don't know what to think anymore. Her hands were shaking again. I reached out and steadied them, warm grip over hers. "You ain't gotta wait till the house on fire to know the stove too hot." That's when she started crying again. But it was softer. A release. "Mama, I'm embarrassed," she admitted. "How can a woman with a degree who helps other people every day not help herself?" "Because we sometimes get fooled into believing we ain't worth saving." She nodded, wiped her face with both sleeves. "There's a bag under Ania's car seat," she whispered. "It's got my phone, his spare car key, and my wallet. I didn't even bring underwear." "You stay put, I'll get it." When I went out to her car, something inside me paused. The interior was clean, military tidy. But on the back passenger floor, a flip-flop sat upside down, like someone had kicked it off in a panic. The pink strap was dirty, bent. I grabbed the bag fast, tried not to think too hard before I cried myself. Later that afternoon, I went into her old room while she napped. I opened the drawers gentle, tried not to wake her. Needed to see how bad things really were. That's when I found the folded composition book under the mattress. Half filled, torn edges. In it were diary entries. Maybe not for me to read, but the moment called for secrets to die. Today he came home and I hadn't folded laundry yet. He didn't yell. He just turned the TV up and dropped the basket on the floor. Said, "Figure it out." I felt like I disappeared. Tuesday. Anya asked me why I cried while making breakfast. I told her grown-ups cry when we're tired sometimes. I hope that didn't scare her. Last Friday I slept on the couch because the bed felt too small for his moods. I think I miss hearing my own voice. I sat on the edge of her bed, then leaned over and kissed her forehead while she slept. Her fingers twitched in her sleep. Little girl reflexes. I was back in the kitchen by dinner time. I had put on a fresh head wrap, green one with gold trim. Same one I wore when I went to the courthouse the first time after Leroy left me in '93. I needed to feel strong. The phone rang, unknown number. I let it ring twice, then picked it up. "Hello?" "You must be her mama." It was a man's voice, low and taut with false politeness. "This is Ora Mae." "Well, then you already know she's made a mistake running to you. But don't worry, I ain't mad. I just think it's time she came on back. Let's not make this bigger than it gotta be." My spine stiffened straight. She ain't coming back till she decide to, and even then, she coming back different. A pause, then a soft laugh. "You turnin' my woman against me with y'all hallmark motherhood?" Now I knew I was talking to a devil with charm. "You already turned her against you the first time you left a bruise on a body you promised to protect." He exhaled hard. "You think she stay with you? All pitiful and broke?" "I think she survive, and then she rebuild." Silence again. "Just know," he said, a drop of venom in every syllable, "there's consequences for women who speak up." I steadied my voice before hanging up. "There's bigger ones for men who lay hands on daughters." Click. The air left my lungs slow. I turned around. Joylene was standing in the hallway behind me, eyes full of tears. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have left him a long time ago." "No, baby. I should have come got you before you ever had to crawl." She walked into my arms, leaning into me like she used to when her knees got scraped on summer sidewalks. We didn't say much else, but something in both of us shifted. The silence that tried to bury her pain became the voice we were both ready to use. And I wasn't done yet. I waited until Ania was outside playing with chalk on the porch steps before I made the next move. Joylene had just come out of the bath, wrap around her and hair still damp. She looked softer, like steam had washed away at least one layer of fear. But she walked like her body was memory-marked. She held her ribs when she sat, didn't realize she was doing it. We both knew something big was about to happen, so I sat her down, and I pulled the old envelope from the black metal case I'd kept hidden in the coat closet since '98. She blinked at it. "What is that?" "It's from when he applied for an apartment lease, years before he met you." Her brow furrowed. "How?" "You remember my old friend, Ms. Lula, who managed that housing office in Taylor Hill?" Joylene nodded slower. "Well, she called me some years back, asking if I knew a fella by Darnell Jacobs. Said he put me as his character reference on the lease form without even asking." "You never told me that." "Because, baby girl," I said, leaning in across the table. When I called her to tell her I barely knew him, she sounded nervous. Said she couldn't get into it over the phone. But when I came by in person, she showed me a copy of his tenant file from a place before that, back in Milledgeville. Unit 3B, police got called 3 times. Once for a broken window. Once 'cause some neighbor found a baby outside crying in a diaper in the hallway. 3rd time was for a domestic disturbance. Woman wouldn't testify. Moved out same week. Joylene's face drained out. Her lips parted dry. "I ain't never told you 'cause you looked so sure, and maybe I thought people could change if you just love 'em better." She whispered. "You knew who he was. And still let me move in with him?" "Not let you," I said, chest tight with my shame. "Watched you do it and didn't say nothing. And that's my regret." But my silence wasn't permission. It was fear pretending to be hope. She looked down at her tea, hands curling tight around the mug. "What else was in there?" I laid one more folded page in front of her. An online public record printout. Darnell had a restraining order taken out by a different woman 5 years before. Joylene met him. He contested it. It was never finalized, but the story was there. The red flags, the patterns. And suddenly, my daughter's silence had a shape now. The bruises had a history. She ran her fingers down the paper like it was a puzzle piece she hadn't been able to find until that moment. Her mouth trembled. "I really thought it was me," she croaked. "I thought I just didn't know how to be loved right. That I ruined the good parts." "No," I said. "But Mama, when it started, it wasn't even violent. It was little things. I'd be running late from work. He'd call and say I never respected his time. Or if he cooked and I didn't say thank you loud enough, he'd pout until I apologized. Once, he left the house for 2 days 'cause I said the chili was too salty." She laughed lightly, one of those pain-laced chuckles that twist your stomach. And before I knew it, I was avoiding friends, dressing down, changing my tone just to keep the air calm when he walked in. He never punched me. That's what I kept telling myself. But then came the first time he squeezed my arm too hard, then pushed my shoulder, then cursed loud enough for Ania to cry in the other room. I stayed 'cause I knew what leaving a man could look like without a plan. "You stayed," I said, "because you was fighting for your life and didn't want to admit you'd already lost pieces of it." Joylene stood up and walked to the window. Her bones looked fragile in that moment. The robe drooped off one side, and I saw another mark near her shoulder blade. She didn't turn around. "He told me the world outside didn't care about me. Said nobody checked in when I posted nothing, said I was invisible to my own family." "I failed you," I said behind her. "No, Mama, I failed me." She turned around slow, tears wet on her cheeks. "I wanted to be strong like you, but I don't know how." "You think strength is carrying all that pain alone," I said. "But baby, strength is knowing when to pass the weight." She came back, sat, eyes distant. "I kept a copy of a voice recording once," she said. "When he tore up the bathroom 'cause I didn't answer a text. He shattered the shower mirror. I recorded him yelling. I was going to send it to a shelter hotline, but he caught me holding the phone, made me delete it." My chest burned. "What if we got proof now?" I asked. Joylene looked up. "Would you go to the police if we file?" She blinked. "Wouldn't they take Ania? Start questioning if I'm an unfit mother for staying too long." "No, they might protect you both, but we need someone who knows what they're doing." I stood. Walked over to the drawer and pulled out the card binder I kept tucked behind the condiments. Pulled one card out. Shannon Rollins, domestic violence advocate. I worked with her from church back in '09. I sat back down. You ain't gotta press charges yet, but we can give her a call. Joylene held the card like it glowed. But what do I tell her? That I snuck out without a plan and now I'm scared to go back even for my toothbrush? You tell her, I said, that you survived, and that's reason enough to write the next chapter. Right then, the front porch creaked. My gut dropped before I even looked up. Anya's voice came into the house first, too bubbly. Hi, Daddy. Then silence. Real sharp silence. Me and Joylene locked eyes. She stood up, panic in her face. I rushed to the door before she could get there and cracked it open just enough. He was standing right on the porch steps, too close kinda standing. Black Raiders hoodie, hardwood stare, car still running behind him like he didn't plan to stay long, just long enough to intimidate. Evening, I said, flat as I could. He smiled, just enough to be disrespectful. I'm here for my daughter, he said. Let's not make this messy. Behind me, I could feel Joylene clutch my back. Anya stood near the porch planter, pink chalk still in her hand. She looked confused, hopeful even. That's the dangerous part about this kind of man. He can turn on sweet around kids. I stepped fully outside and shut the front door behind me. You can see her, I said, from there. He chuckled, took a slight step forward. I ain't got time for these games. You had time to scare my daughter into bruising herself in my kitchen, so you got time to wait. Joylene don't got custody of her, I do. For today, I said calmly, but not for long. He looked confused, tilted his head a little. I saw what he was trying to read, whether I was bluffing. He didn't know that I had already texted Shannon. Didn't know she was sending someone over to walk Joylene through a no-contact petition the very next morning. Didn't know Child Protective Services don't snatch kids away from mothers who choose safety. Especially when Grandma got half a brain and clean floors. She yours biologically, I said. But that little girl ain't safe alone with you. His smile faded. I could call the cops, he muttered low. Do it, or I'll beat you to it. A muscle in his jaw twitched. He took a half step backwards. Joylene always was dramatic, whine and pity, all in one woman. My blood ran cold. Say her name one more time with ice in your mouth, and I'll put heat under it. He glanced at Ania. She was looking away now, pretending to color. That girl needs her father, he said. I shook my head. She needs her mother first, and her peace second. You didn't qualify for either. And just like that, he turned. That fast. No punches, no pulled weapons, just a slow, calculated retreat. And there was the dangerous part. How men like him vanish before the law can catch the smoke. But I knew he'd try again. Dirty power likes to reappear when it thinks the memory fades. Joylene watched it all through the screen door. When I walked back in, she was breathless. Were you scared? She asked. Baby, I said, closing the door behind me, locking it tight. I've been scared since the day you moved in with him. She broke down again right there in my arms. But this time it was different. Her cry sounded clean, like she'd finally spit out something she didn't know was choking her. And I didn't feel helpless like I had before. I felt righteous, and I knew this wasn't the end. This was the beginning of a war for joy, but this time we were holding the sword. My kitchen never seen so much legal talk before. Joylene sat at one end of the table, same spot where she broke down 2 nights ago. Across from her was Shannon, calm, sharp, and dressed in a navy blazer that made her feel like justice wrapped in cotton. That woman spoke so gentle you didn't know, till 5 minutes in, she was teaching you how to burn a man down with paperwork. She laid the folder between them like it was scripture. This is the emergency protection order, she said. Once you sign, a judge gets it expedited, typically within 24 hours. If approved, he cannot come within 300 feet of you. That includes workplace, school, or residence. Joylene nodded, eyes puffy but focused now. She held the pen, a little slow, a little shaky, but her grip was firmer than it had been. I stayed beside her the whole time, didn't interrupt, didn't hover, just stood behind her seat like a tree root after a long storm. You'll also fill out the statement of incident, Shannon said, flipping to a single page. This is where you give description, dates, what you remember, anything physical he did or said. You don't need to cover everything. Just give them what they can't ignore. Joylene exhaled and looked at me. I nodded once. She started writing. It was like watching her birth a second self, not the version that survived, but the one that named what she survived. Each sentence made the bruise on her wrist less silent. I typed most of this already, she admitted. I've been typing pieces in my notes app. Every time he made me feel small, I wrote one line. You were documenting instinctively, Shannon confirmed. That's strength. Most women don't realize that's legal gold. She wrote for 12 minutes, and when it was done, I saw it in her shoulders right away. The shake was gone. She had sat like a prisoner a few days ago. Now she sat like a woman, ready to see herself different. Anya peeked in halfway through, holding her snack cup. Can I sit with you, Mama? Joylene smiled. Not just 'cause the baby came in, but because this time when her child asked her that, she had the strength to say, always. Right after Shannon left, Joylene sat in front of the living room window with the blanket draped over her legs. Eyes wide open but not lost, just a mother gathering her next steps. And that's when the knock came. 2 sharp taps. I was in the hall folding towels when I heard it and paused. Joylene called cautious. Who is it? Voice replied, it's me. She opened the door. Caleb stood there, a duffel over his shoulder, hair in clean twists. Hoodie worn but neat, grown man tired in the face. Hey, he said. Joylene just stared. I stepped between them, not in fear, just preparation. He with you? I asked her gently. She shook her head, still processing. I looked him up and down, then asked blunt enough, what brings you through this time, boy? He licked his lips, shifted his bag. I saw Joy's name in a mutual report from DV Watch. They emailed the family contact list she used. And, I asked. I read the statement, all of it. I booked a bus that night. Joylene's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I didn't know, he told her, voice cracking just a little, and that's my fault. I stepped aside slow, motioned him in. He didn't sit right away. Just stood in the center of the carpet, eyes flicking between me, the bookshelf, the chair Joylene used to rock in, the photo of her graduation above the fireplace. You got a place to stay? I asked flatly. He nodded. I'll grab a motel for now. You ain't staying here, I said, not out of anger, but truth. This house is centering a woman still remembering how to breathe. No offense taken, he said. I didn't come to crowd her. I came to stand outside the gates if I had to. Joylene finally walked closer. Her voice was tight but fair. Couldn't call before? I didn't know you was in danger. You didn't ask. That part landed hard on him. Caleb dropped his eyes. You're right, he said. I moved too far away in more ways than one. Joylene didn't say nothing. She just nodded once, like her spirit might consider forgiveness later. And Mama, Caleb turned to me, you always knew how to wake the dead inside folks. I squinted slightly. What you mean? You gave her air before she even asked for it. I didn't answer, just motioned toward the kitchen. Thought you lived in Houston, I muttered. He sat on the edge of the couch, finally settling. I did. But running from family got old when I saw y'all still carrying what I could have helped hold. That halted me a second. I ain't here to make amends fast, he added. But I'd like to be the one who walks her to court. Joylene didn't speak, but her back relaxed. I'm gonna do this with or without a man, she told him slowly, just so we clear. He raised a hand. Good. But don't nobody say a strong woman can't have a brother on her 6. That night we ate stew. Ania curled up next to Caleb like he'd always been there. And in a way, he always had been, spiritually present while physically absent. Me and Joylene didn't speak much, but our silence had changed flavor. It was recovery now. Space with integrity, not fear. Morning came. We dressed soft but firm. Joylene wore an olive green top and jeans, hair tight in a low puff wrapped by a scarf, her favorite hoops, lip balm, just enough shine to feel put together. She looked ready. I chose my tan dress, mid-length, the one with the faint floral print, 'cause I don't wear all black unless it's a funeral. And this was a birth in disguise. Caleb drove. When we walked into the courthouse, it smelled cold, like air had been running without breath for hours. Shannon met us near the sign-in desk. You made it, she whispered. Yeah, Joylene said, and I ain't leaving the same. There was a moment during the hearing when the judge read part of Joylene's incident report out loud. Words like grip marks on shoulders and child present during verbal altercation echoed off marble walls. I watched as Joylene straightened up taller, not smaller. That is the moment, I think, her protection order became power instead of just paper. Judge signed, stamped, done. It was real, a barrier between her and fear, one that could call law now instead of midnights and trembling knees. As we exited the building, she stopped on the stairs. Everything was louder outside. Cars, people, life. "Mama," she whispered. I leaned in slightly to hear her over traffic. "Can we go by my apartment?" I didn't answer quick. She noticed. "I just want to get one bag, my laptop, 2 photos. I won't go in if he's there, I promise." I weighed the risk, but I nodded. "If he's there, you walk away." "Correct? No confrontation?" Caleb stayed in the car. I went with her. We walked slow up those cement steps. Each landing held a memory. You could tell by the hesitation in her foot. The apartment was empty. She used a key she hadn't touched in 4 days. Inside, quiet, still air, no music, lights off. She moved like a dancer on broken glass, soft, deliberate. I stood near the door, being the lookout. She went room to room, grabbing only what fit in her flowered canvas tote. No clothes. Just photos of me and her at her graduation. A drawing Ania made last spring, her worn laptop. And on her way out, she looked at the bed. It wasn't made. She stared at it, then turned. "Let's go." That was the first line in her new chapter, the first page unstuck from hesitation. Right before we turned off the light, she wrote one note and left it on the fridge. Nothing dramatic, just 6 words. "I won't be afraid no more." When we stepped outside, sun hit her cheekbones. She didn't squint, didn't flinch. Even the wind knew who she was now. When we pulled back into my driveway, Ania ran out the front door with chalk all over her palms. "Mommy, I made you a superhero!" The drawing was a woman with puffy hair, holding a child in one arm and a sword in the other. At the bottom in crooked letters, "Mommy is strong now." Joylene hugged her so tight I thought the chalk would transfer onto her skin. She whispered without looking at me, "I'm starting to believe it." And I realized something. All those years I tried to raise strong children. But now I was watching a woman raise herself. The first Saturday, Joylene laughed in my house again. There was peach cobbler on the table and music playing on low from the kitchen radio. One of those old Al Green songs that sound like church and love at the same time. She was twirling Ania around in the living room, her apron tied crooked and flour dust in her cheek like highlighter. Her eyes were finally all the way open, like even her soul remembered how to smile. I watched from the hallway, arms crossed, leaning against the wall like you do when you don't want to interrupt something holy. The laugh wasn't just sound, it was light. And I knew we made it, not to perfection, no such thing, but to a place where she no longer had to hold her breath for safety. A place where fear had to knock before entering, and kindness ran the home. That same night we had pancakes for dinner. "Dessert before dinner is a form of liberation," Joylene announced. To which Caleb replied, "Only if you make enough for seconds." He'd been showing up more, not hovering, but helping. Running to the store, changing the oil on her car, even built Anaya a little bookshelf so she could stop stacking her storybooks in a laundry basket. I watched Joylene and Caleb on the porch one evening. She nudged him lightly. "Thanks for coming through when you did." He cleared his throat. "I should have come sooner." They didn't hug, but she leaned her head on his shoulder just for a second. That said more than anything hands could say. Inside, I cleaned up the kitchen slow, hand-washing every dish like the water could rinse sorrow off the porcelain. That's when Ania came up behind me and asked, "Was my mommy sick?" I paused, set the plate down into the towel. "She was heartsick," I told her softly, "but she healing now." Ania frowned, thinking it through in child logic. "Like when I get a cough?" I smiled. "Sorta, but sometimes the cough's on the inside." She nodded like she understood anyway. Then she pulled a small folded card from her Hello Kitty backpack and gave it to me. "For you." I opened it slow. Inside was a drawing of me with stars on my dress, a green scarf on my head, holding a teacup. Big letters across the top, backwards S and all. "Thank you for saving my mommy." That's when I broke. Not loud, just tears that slipped down like grace. The kind that come when you realize some miracles don't arrive with lightning, but with porch lights and open doors. 1 week later, the doorbell rang. It was an envelope. No name, no knock. Just slid under the screen like a warning. Inside, a custody petition, filed by Darnell. He was suing for full visitation rights. Joylene's hands shook when she held it. I thought he'd let go, she whispered. He didn't lose control, I said. It just got taken from him. That week, the air turned heavy again, but not hopeless. Shannon met with us twice. She read everything, prepped Joylene for court again. He's playing a game abusers always play, Shannon said, weaponizing the system, but now we play too, with truth. The hearing was tense. He stood there smirking, well-dressed, like he hadn't broken dishes and bones in the same house where that little girl had colored dinosaurs barefoot. But Joylene stood taller. She wore blue this time. No scarf, just her crown of curls in a tight puff, skin clear, words steady. When the judge asked why she left, she said, "Because my daughter deserved better than fear, and so did I." A full silence in the courtroom followed. I watched as something flickered across Darnell's face. Not rage, not shame, but recognition. He lost. Not just the motion, the war. The judge awarded supervised visitation under agency supervision. No unscheduled drop-ins, no unsupervised weekends, no power behind the curtain. Joylene cried in the car outside the courthouse, not because she was sad, but because she got herself back and got to protect her daughter in one breath. "Mama," she whispered, "do you know what it feels like to be seen again?" I squeezed her hand. "I do now. That Sunday we went to church for the first time in months. Nothing fancy. Just needed to sit someplace where the air was clean and the songs stretched higher than the ceiling. The pastor's message wasn't even about survival, but every word landed like it was. He said, "You don't rebuild houses on the same foundation that collapsed. You pour new concrete. And sometimes it's the shaking that saves us." Joylene squeezed my hand, didn't say a word, didn't need to. We both knew what our shaking had brought. It was late afternoon when we made it back home. Golden light had filled every window like soft honey pouring slow. My old kitchen looked like something sacred. Joylene made tea. She poured mine before I even asked. 2 teaspoons of sugar, not stirred. She sat across from me. "You think I'll ever stop being angry at what I let happen to me?" "You didn't let it happen," I said. "You survived it, and now you're transforming it." "Still," she said, "there's days when my mind remembers before my body even feels safe, like when the doorbell rings and I flinch." "You'll learn peace again," I told her. "Not all at once, but steady, like the tide." We sipped. No dramatic music, no big revelations, just tea and time. That evening, Joylene laid Ania down without tears. No pulled blankets, no fake smiles, just love in the air, unforced. And as I watched how her hands smoothed the covers, how she bent to kiss her daughter's curls, I realized something I hadn't said out loud. "Joy?" She turned gently. "You didn't just survive him," I said. "You're teaching the rest of us how to." She smiled. "She's not scared at night no more," she said. "She sleeps without asking if the door's locked." Tonight, I sat on this same porch with my cup warm between my hands. The sun slipping down slow behind the neighbor's fence line, and I thought about everything this house had seen. All the voices, cries, confessions, and invisible weight that passed through my kitchen table. I used to think silence was safety, but now I see sometimes a woman breaking down in your kitchen is the loudest miracle you'll ever face. If somebody you love showed up at your door with bruises they tried to hide, what would you do? Would you let them cry in peace? Would you look away? Would you open the door twice, once for them to enter, and again to let the fear walk out? I tell real stories like this one. If you're still with me after all this, if real stories move you, subscribe to Tales of Ora Mae. Some stories don't get to be written unless somebody with a soft voice dares to speak them. Thank you for listening. And if you've ever been brave enough to start over, leave me a comment. What would you have done if that girl breaking at the table was yours? I'll be reading, always, with love and strength. Mama May.